We got Kenny Fight in the chat. We got James Ham's Pug on the show, man. It's a Friday here. As we welcome in our 1320 Kings insider, James Ham. James, how you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling good. David Jackson in the tweet in the thread had me laughing that I have a thong on my pug the wrong way. When you're as fat as my pug is, there's really no way to put a harness on you. Like a harness, like it is what it is. Like you're bulging out everywhere. He's got like muffin top going all over. Like it is.
We can
can't
confirm we did. Pug made an appearance here.
Yeah.
So we got well, it is what it is. We've got the Kings looking to snap a 3-game losing streak. They're going into Oklahoma City, and I don't know how many people know this. That team's won 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
So,
this is a try-hard team. I worry about the Kings versus try-hard teams. And that's what the San Antonio Spurs are. They're well coached. They don't take a night off, even if they don't have the talent to win most nights, but they try hard. And I think the biggest concern for the Kings right now is how long is Tyrese Halliburton going to be out? I talked to somebody today within the walls that's on the trip, and they said, like, there's still hope that he'll play today, but they don't know yet. And just not having a secondary ball handler against a team that has Lou Dort is a problem, because if Lou Dort can be effective like he normally is, he might be able to take away a player like De'Aaron Fox, and then who is going to create for this team? So they're really hoping that they have that secondary ball handler and Tyrese Halliburton ready to roll. But I think it's an issue. Yeah, they definitely came into the season with a lack of playmaking, and now it's on full display.
Buddy Hield at shoot around, like, yeah. Buddy Hield dribbling the ball, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, the last couple of times I've been on, but Buddy Hield has not increased his assist percentage. And I went back and looked, and man, he had more assists last season to Richaun Holmes than Tyrese Halliburton did. And they were in the same starting lineup together, but the playmaking from that position there from Buddy Hield is a huge issue right now. It's a huge issue. He's averaging, I think per 36 last year, he was at like 3.8. And right now he's at like 2.3 assists per game. And his assist percentage below 10%. That's just not going to fly. You need with Halliburton out, somebody else has to step up and create shots for other people. And if they don't have that happen, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
So real quick on the Tyrese Halliburton situation, did they kind of expect this to be a 2, 3, maybe 4-game injury, or did they think maybe it'd be a one-night thing and he'd be back? And are they caught off guard by this? What was their initial thought about the injury?
Yeah, back injuries are tricky. You never quite know when they're going to cool down, especially, Halliburton's such a young guy. You'd figure that he would bounce right back from something like this. That's probably why the Kings didn't bring Lou King on the trip with them. That would have been helpful because, Lou King could have provided some depth where, I think Lou King is way further along in the process than Jemias Ramsey. But I just think that they didn't believe that this was going to drag out. So there is hope that he'd be ready tonight. And if not tonight, you'd hope that they have 2 days off after this. So Monday they get back on the court against Detroit, and you'd hope that maybe by that point he would be ready to go. But man, it's playmaking. It's his ability to get downhill, especially in the half court set, get downhill with that floater running at the rim in the 2-man game with Richaun Holmes, and sort of break up what some of these teams are doing right now, where they're just sagging off of Holmes and taking him away and really clogging the lane for everybody else. So hopefully we'll see him back on the court soon.
Hopefully, man.
So I assume they can only take a certain number of people on the road with him. Like you can only there's only a certain number of roster spots, but couldn't they have left Marvin back and taken Lou King?
Yeah. I mean, yes, they could have, but I think at this point, you're just not quite sure where this whole Marvin Bagley thing is going to play out.
I don't know. I saw a video this week that made me think I know how it's going.
No, I get that, but those moments like that, a moment like that where a guy refuses to go on the court, sometimes it like has a weird effect behind the scenes, like a coming to Jesus moment with everybody, where they sit down and they hash things out and they say, okay, how do we move forward, or do we not move forward? Are you ever going to do something like this again? I don't think, like, people take this, like the video that Sean put up. We don't know exactly when he was asked to go in the game. It was in the third quarter, but we don't know the exact moment of when he was asked to go in and he refused. So you see some of his teammates like touching him on the shoulder and stuff like that. Like, look, if you play soccer and your keeper gives up a goal where it just slips through his hands and goes into the back of the net, and like everyone on the field is looking at him like, man, I cannot believe that just happened. That was such a horrible play. That's when you walk over and you pat him on the shoulder and you give him a hug and you say, hey, we got this. Let's move forward. I think that's what a lot of that was. That was just teammates being good teammates and saying, okay, we're going to have to figure this situation out. So I don't think people should read too much into whose side everybody's on. I'll tell you this, there are 16 players pulling one direction and one that's not. And so that means that they're pulling that direction for their coach, for their teammates, for everybody else. And one player who hasn't figured out how he can be impactful, even if he's not playing, even though, again, he's clapping, he's cheering his teammates on, he's doing some of those things the right way, but openly defying a coach and not going in a game, to me, I would treat it like they treated his broken finger last year and just let him go home. Just let him go home and hang out with his parents for a month.
That's my next question, James. Why is he still here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I broke it down pretty extensively at the Kings Beat. He's still here because you can't trade him at this point. Number one, he doesn't have any value. So you would just be dumping him. You can't waive him because once you waive him, his $11.8 million just basically dissolves, and
Well,
you still pay it. Go ahead.
I was even saying, to your point, like, why not just send him home? Like, why is he still around this team right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's because there's always the hope that maybe something like this is a defining moment for somebody, and that would be a good thing if this became like a defining moment where it's like, okay, I get it. I think part of the problem is, very specifically, Marvin still looks at himself as a potential all-star, as the number 2 pick overall in the draft, as somebody who has this huge, monstrous career in front of him that he's going to make, hundreds of millions of dollars, that he's been done wrong. And that's just not the case. Like, I've been around this team for a decade, for 12 years, and they have made so many mistakes. Drafting Marvin Bagley was a huge mistake. But once you drafted him, now what do we do from there? And I've seen them botch player development. I've seen them cause issues with players. That's just not what's happened here. They stood by a kid. Did Dave Yeager, was he doing a little bit of tough love and saying, look, I'm not just going to hand the starting power forward job over to you. You're going to have to earn your way, the same way that De'Aaron Fox did the year before. Yeah, sure, he did. But then you get to year 2 and it's one injury after another. It's one elongated recovery from injury after another. It's a guy who, I think a lot of people around the franchise were like, look, you just didn't come back at all from any of the injuries. You came, the first injury, the hand injury, was like 4 to 6 weeks, and it took him 7, almost 8 weeks to get back. When you got Fox going out with a grade 3 ankle sprain and missing 17 games and coming back like 6 weeks ahead of schedule. So you're hoping there that he learns from that process. But like, look, again, I think the Kings have botched so many things over the course of my time covering him. I just don't see where they botched this one at all. They stood behind him every single time he's been healthy. Luke Walton has started him until this year. They gave him a huge long leash. The one thing that I'll point to is I would have let him go home for a week last year when he broke his hand, but I just didn't get them allowing him to go home for a month instead of rehabbing with the team, and then taking 6 weeks to get back from, an injury that LaMelo Ball's was far more severe. And he came back in 3 weeks. It took Marvin 6 weeks to get on the court. So these are all problems. That isolated situation is where I think the Kings just basically said, look, we're done with him. This is it. We're not doing this anymore. Now we get to this point. Why you just don't send him home is you might need him. Number one, I don't think you will, because I think Chimezie Metu has now moved ahead of him on the depth chart, rightfully so. But there might also come a point where you need to just see what you have so other people in the league can see what you have. But again, you can't waive him, because then his $11.8 million salary trade chip goes away. You can't trade it, the like roster spot. And even if he took substantially less money in a buyout, that doesn't matter. The Kings are over the cap, so they could never use that money. So basically, he's just like Jabari Parker was, or, like a lot of players have been in the past with this team, Zebo, where they told Zebo, you can come in, you can come here and hang out, or you don't have to, in his final year. But by retaining him in that $15 million trade chip, they were able to go and get Harrison Barnes later. So again, like I think this franchise, like, again, they make mistakes all the time. This one, the mistake they made was drafting Marvin Bagley. And then from there, I just don't think that he's ever figured it out that, this is a big boy league and you got to be ready to play. And if you're not ready to play, or if you say you don't want to go in a game, that just tells your teammates everything you need to know.
Come in, hang out, or don't. Here's your $15 million. Get out of my face. I need that life. You're listening to D'Lo McKay and James Ham here on ESPN 1320. KIFM, West Sacramento and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lashers, Elk Grove Dodge. If Luke turns to Marvin tonight, does Marvin go in the game?
Yeah, I think at this point, like, the conversation's been had, right? If that happens again, then you're talking about long-term suspension for detrimental behavior to the team. And with that comes game checks. The Kings would have no problems just taking game checks from him at this point. If that's the way he's going to act, then they'll take the strong approach on the way back. I also think that by not playing him the next game, that was Luke saying, look, I'm not going to come back and do something crazy here. They could have used him. I know Mo Harkless was under the weather, and that's why his minutes have been limited. Like the last 2 games, he's been a little sick. They could have used Marvin. That's why he was going in the game against Phoenix. But I'll also point to that, like, that Phoenix game, it's tough because, Marvin is from Phoenix. Like, does he want to go on TV in his hometown, have all of his friends and family watching while he goes in scrub time in a blowout? And that's what was going through Marvin's head. What was going through Chimezie Metu's head was, this is an opportunity for me to go in there and try to bring this team back. Mm-hmm. And he was part of a huge comeback. That could have been Marvin. That's his bad. That's his mistake. It's no one else's. And so for him not to play in the next game, I think that's the right move. From here on out, whether they need him or not is going to be a game in and game out situation. But you never know. This could be a blowout one way or another tonight in Oklahoma, and Marvin Bagley's number could get called. If he's not ready again, then at that point, not only do I send him home, but I suspend him 3 games from the team or something. I'm just done with him.
Yeah. And we've gone back and forth about it. I understand both sides, but somebody brought up a point yesterday and we talked about it. These are the things that make this, what happened on opening night. Those are 2 things that make the Kings, whether fair or foul, whether I believe it or not, around the league, look like a joke. You got this guy basically spitting in your face at every turn, and you're not doing anything about it. You just kind of stand there. You don't play him. He's still on the bench. He doesn't get reprimanded. He doesn't get sent home, nothing like that. And I made the argument, and maybe this is just all emotional, but look, I know you said you might need him or whatever. You're not using Marvin Bagley. You don't need him. There's guys in Stockton that you can bring up that if you're willing to play Metu, no disrespect to him, you can bring guys up in Stockton to play. You don't need Marvin Bagley. Let this be an opportunity to make an example. I said, this isn't the same Kings. This isn't the same organization that can just be disrespected by their players and by anybody that comes at them in a disrespectful way. make an example out of them. Like you said, they've got contract things, maybe cooler heads prevail. You don't do that. But I look at this as an excellent opportunity to make an example and show the rest of the league this isn't the same old Kings.
Yeah, I'll respond with this. You played basketball, right?
Mhm.
You're a ball player, right?
Mhm.
What's the worst thing a coach can do to you?
Take your minutes away.
Aha. He's played 10 minutes all season. They're showing Marvin Bagley who controls the situation. They're showing his agent who controls the situation. We're not even seeing the old showcase. Like, let's showcase him for 3 games and see if someone gets interested. They don't care. They
Mhm.
don't care. They look at him as a block and a trade. And they can't give it up. And they're not going to take something back that's trash. And they're not going to take back 2 second-round picks or something like that until they have to. If that's all they can get for him at the deadline, that's one thing. But they're not even looking at the value of him. They're looking at is the value of his $12 million contract. You package him with Tristan Thompson. Now you're looking at 22 million plus or minus like 25% is what you can do as far as a trade. So you can get a $26 million player, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what they're looking at him as. And until then, either he's going to be ready or he's not. And if he's not ready, again, I think there could come a point where it's just like, okay, just leave. But I don't think that they didn't see that coming. Like they didn't think that that's where it was with him.
Mhm.
And I think maybe they misjudged. And that whole night was weird, right? Because I tweeted out during that game, they were giving away in the upper bowl autographed Marvin Bagley jerseys to the crowd in that game before that whole situation happened. Everyone in the building was like, oh, that's not very nice. Autographed Marvin Bagley jersey to the fan that wants to scream the loudest. Okay. That was, again, a shot across the bow, but maybe unintentional, but it sure does look like it.
Mhm.
Did you talked about it's not even the same old showcasing thing there, James. Has Monty wanted to trade Marvin from jump, from becoming the Kings general manager? Has it? I mean, I don't know if it's a priority, but it was always like, or was it like, hey, let's move on from this guy. This isn't working. Let's see what we could do here. Let's see if we can get him out of here and what we can get in return.
I think he kept an open mind. Like coming into
Okay.
the season, it's like, what's going to happen here? He's healthy. Let's give him a run. And Luke Walton said the same thing. Like, let's see what he's got. They gave him. I think he played 43 games or something, or either 43 or let's see. He had 42 starts. So he played in 43 games, and of those games, only one game he didn't start because he's coming off of something. And so I think what Luke was saying is, okay, let's get a sample size so we can look at what the analytics look like. And so we have a better idea of what's happening here. When they got to the moment where he broke his hand, it was a finger in his mid hand. That's when, he requested to leave to go home. Again, I had no problem with the initial him going home. We're talking about a global pandemic. He hadn't seen his parents or his family, his brothers in a long time because he was in lockdown with everybody else. I was okay with him getting to go home just for, a week or so and then coming back. And we're talking about a kid who coming into the draft and everyone still knows he only goes left. How you don't spend 3 weeks working on his right hand, getting him stronger, keeping his wind up, all that stuff doesn't make any sense to me. And then of course he comes back and he didn't think he was even going to play, and he tried to, like, he thought his season was over, and the Kings were like, no, we still got 10 games left, get on the court. And it took him a week and a half to get out on the court. Like, too many weird things have happened here where, again, the Kings did try to deal him at the trade deadline. They did try to deal him this summer. But again, his value to this team as a piece to a larger deal is it's worth the headache right now. And it's worth more than people think, than just giving him away for nothing.
Do you think, we talk about this ad nauseum? We did damn near the whole show on this yesterday. Do you think the guys in the locker room care one way or another about what's going on with Marvin Bagley?
Yeah, I think they care. I think they don't care for what he's doing. And I think that they care about each other and they care about winning and they have a goal to make the playoffs. And they're not going to let this be a distraction for them. But they care because, you got a bunch of people polling one way and someone saying, hey, I'm not getting mine. And it's a selfish, like young man issue that we have here that we're seeing, like an immaturity to Bagley that it's disappointing because we're not in year 1, we're not in year 2, we're in year 4 of this, and now it's like, look, you've proven nothing. Like he has, as a player, has proven nothing. He's the same exact player that averaged 14.5 and 7.5 as a rookie, a sophomore, and a junior in the NBA. He has not shown an ability to improve, and his defense it speaks way louder than any stat he could ever put up on the board. It just does. So, yeah, I think the players are looking at it and saying, hey, this thing will get worked out. We know it'll get worked out, but we're staying strong together and we're not going to worry about it. If Marvin's here, he's laughing, he's having a good time, that's fine. If he becomes a major distraction, get him out of here. We don't want to deal with it either.
You don't think it was a distraction on Wednesday?
No. I mean, look,
they just played like crap.
Yeah, they just played poorly. They
Yeah.
came out, they weren't ready.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to put that on Marvin Bagley at all.
Sure.
You had plenty of players. It's sort of every time this happens, it's usually the usual suspects, right? It's Buddy Hield missing threes. It's Harrison Barnes going from a guy who shoots 18 times a game to shoot 6. Like, this is what happens in these situations. I'm not going to let Richaun Holmes off the hook. Richaun Holmes has not been good on either end of the court for a couple of games. And I get it. Halliburton's not there to set you up. But I look at the numbers, and De'Aaron Fox had more assists to him last year. Buddy Hield had more assists than Tyrese Halliburton did. Like, you got to figure it out. You got to figure out when the opposing team does nothing but drop their big into the center of the key and dare you to do something other than a pick and roll. You got to do something other than a pick and roll. I saw a couple of times where he started to dribble into the key and go at somebody. That's fine. Do that. Pull up from 18. If they're not going to defend you out there, make them defend you. That's the way basketball is done. And you can't just, it's almost like watching the Kansas City Chiefs. They take Tyreek Hill off the board going over the top on you, and that team can't do anything. They're paralyzed. Like, what in the world? So you got to figure it out. You got to be better. So I think a lot of the veterans need to look at themselves at this point and say, how do I play better? And how do I help this team win? And how do I not try to play better and cause more problems, which I think, unfortunately for Buddy Hield, is what he does. He tries too hard.
Does he suck the life out of the starting lineup?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think so. But a lot of his shots, his ill-advised threes, were just bad. Early on in that game, he took a couple of threes with 22 seconds on the shot clock. And then when it's not falling, do something different. That's the way. I mean, that's one thing I can respect about Harrison Barnes. When the shot's not falling, he'll go to the rim and he'll get fouled and he'll try to get, his rhythm back. But just shooting up wild threes and then jacking up and hitting 3 threes in the fourth quarter when you've already lost and you've already been blown out, just so your stats don't look so bad. That to me is like, all right, where were you? Where were you in quarter number 1 and quarter number 2 when we actually had a shot here?
One of the things that we've also discussed on here is the idea that this team is different or they're the exact same as last year. And anybody that says they're the same as last year, I understand completely. Like, I get it. I see some of the things that, would worry me about that. And I understand that. I reserve judgment on that a little bit because I feel they will be the same if they let these 3 games that they just lost turn into 6 games, a 6-game lose. That's the same thing we saw. It's not that they would never go on a losing streak this year. It was just the fact that they, more times than not, they wouldn't let it get past 3 or 4 or something like that. And if they can, nip this in the butt right here, maybe win this one, win against Detroit, who knows what happens against Minnesota. It's not this hugely different team, that is different than what we saw last year. And I that's kind of what I'm looking for. Do you think that is a bit of a sign to whether they've learned from some of the things they went through last year or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it. Like the rope is slipping through your fingers. It's burning you as it's sliding out of your hands. Somebody has to be man enough to grab the rope and
Mm.
stop it and stop the negative momentum. And I don't know who that's going to be. You know, we've seen Fox step up and have good statistical games, but like be impactful. Be impactful when it matters the whole game. You know, be impactful when it's in the first quarter and you're letting your guy blow by you. You know, make adjustments. Like you got a team that can't shoot threes and they catch fire from three. Okay, it's on. Like once a team has confidence, we've talked about this. Like once a team has confidence in the NBA, you're in trouble. So you have to make adjustments on the fly, and you have to say, "Look, I'm going to take pride in this possession and stop my man." Somebody has to grab the rope. That again is just flying by. Grab it and put your foot down and say, "Okay, I'm going to anchor this. The rest of you get your bearings, climb back on board. Let's start pulling again." And until they do that, they're going to be the same old Kings. And as of right now, they're showing signs that that could be the case again, that they could be that soft-minded team that they were last year. But at this point, you know, I'm not going to do it after 3 games, especially, you know, they were so good a week ago. 1 week ago, they were incredible. Now we're 3 games later and everyone's like in panic mode. I don't think it's that time yet, but if we get to Monday and we're talking about a 4-game losing streak and a potential 5-game losing streak, then it's time to hit some sort of panic button.
It was all good just a week ago. That's a Jay-Z lyric, James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider. With
I
us.
know Jay-Z. I know that for a fact.
I know who JC is. I don't know his music.
Rick Ross joins us, James. Rick Ross will be on this show next week, Thursday at 3 p.m. I'm sure you'll be tuned in. You'll be excited for that.
Yep.
What do you think of? I'll send you the essentials playlist that you can listen to. You just mentioned the guy who could, you know, throw the team on the back and hey, let's get going. What do you make of De'Aaron's 37 in that loss to San Antonio?
I love it. I mean, the one ill-advised 3-pointer that became a meme when they caught one of the Kings coaches on the
lines.
Yeah, Rico going, oh. I was doing the same thing. Like, what were you doing? Like, there's no reason to shoot a ball with 22 seconds on 21 seconds on the shot clock and ill-advised 25 pull-up 3. There, outside of that, what I like about what I'm seeing from Fox is he got his glide back. You know, like when he is really good, he looks like a video game. He looks like somebody's hitting the spin move button, and you can see him just kind of float back and forth, float in, float out. His spin move just looks like he's on a cloud. That to me is when you start seeing the real De'Aaron Fox. And like, look, if there's anything that can come out of this 3-game losing streak, if De'Aaron Fox found his way, and I'm not just going to say, oh, it's because Tyrese Halliburton wasn't there. If he can find his way, this team can get right back in the mix and be right back to a team that I think we can all like start envisioning being really good.
I've said it a couple times. Maybe I'm just hoping that they win the next 2 games. Maybe that's the case. But I see how this thing is going to play out, James. They're going to win tonight. They're going to win on Monday. And then Wednesday against Minnesota is going to be this monumental game that everybody's either going to jump off the roof for or have a party on the roof for because, yes, they're 3-1. They're different. That's the way the Kings do things. A game in November against Minnesota is going to mean the world.
And they're going to lose it.
They keep dragging you back in.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They just give you that little glimmer of hope. And then you're like, oh, okay, let me jump back in. Let me see what happens. You know, that's what's hard. It's hard when you're writing about them. It's hard to, you know, it's hard to have radio shows where you're King centric. It's hard.
They
to
did
have
it
podcasts.
in like game 62 last year. Like we thought the season was over. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. It's not. What's happening here?
And just when you think that they've figured it out, they take that step back. It just, you never You never know what's going to happen. And until they can, Harrison Barnes says, until we can prove that we're consistent, then we're going to keep, being a yo-yo. We're going to keep winning some that you're surprised by and losing some that you shake your head at. And it is what it is. I mean, losing to the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio, it's not that bad. And even if you look at the 2 previous games and you put those 3 together, it's really not that bad. It's what you do the rest of this trip. We said if it's anything less than 3-1, it's kind of a disaster. I think that's where we're still at.
Well,
all right. We got to let you go, James.
Real quick, James. Who, obviously, the answer, we want to see De'Aaron do what he does, and Harrison's probably on there too. And you can answer this too, Damian. Who do you want to see step it up tonight for this team with Halliburton out and Terrence Davis out? Who else? My guy I want to see Richaun Holmes play better and bring a level of energy to this team. I want to see him step it up and play a little bit of that leader role that you were talking about, James. Who might you have your eye on here tonight?
Yeah, it's got to be, for me, it's straight up Richaun Holmes and Buddy Hield. I don't want hollow stats from Buddy, and I don't want Richaun Holmes to kind of let go of the rope here. I think he's got 3 blocks in the last 7 games combined. It's just, it's not just on the offensive end that he hasn't been effective. He has not been great defensively either, and that needs to. He's better than he is. I mean, how do you go from 23 points, 20 rebounds to what we've seen over the last 3 games? That just doesn't cut it.
No.
James, we got to let you go. You got a press conference to go to, but we'll be following your every tweet, as I'm sure in about 10 minutes we'll find out the status of Tyrese Halliburton and Terrence Davis tonight. So, James, we appreciate you. As always, my friend, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, James.
All right.